Hey guys, want to talk about hats and if you can become addicted to wearing a hat. And the answer is yes, you can definitely become addicted to wearing hats. I recently just stopped wearing a hat, and I feel better about this because, a lot of times guys turn to hats when they start losing their hair or their hair starts thinning, and they use the hat to try to hide and conceal that because they don't feel as confident when they go out in public because they're afraid people are going to make fun of them, or whatever. And I'm here to say that you shouldn't feel like that. If people can't accept you for who you are, then they're not even worth, talking with or becoming friends with, because that's just ridiculous. Everybody's got certain genetic traits, and once they take over, there's really not a whole lot you can do, but I'll get to that in a second. But my main point is that you absolutely can become addicted to wearing a hat. And I'm here to say that from research that I've done, I've always believed that it wasn't hats that cause baldness, and while I still do believe that, I think that if somebody has the genetic genes or the genetics to go bald and they start wearing a hat on a continual basis for long periods of time, I don't believe that's very good for your hair. And even if you don't have the genetics to go baldness, I still think it's not really good to be wearing a hat on a continual basis for long periods of time, because you're starving your hair of oxygen and sunlight. Think about it. Your hair is kind of like grass. And what does grass need to grow? It needs sunlight, rain, oxygen. I mean, if you covered up the grass with something, what usually happens to the grass? It turns brown and it stops growing. And it makes sense when you think of it like that. And that if you just do not cover your head and you go outside in the sunlight, in the air, I believe that it would be a much better environment for the hair to grow than always wearing a hat. And not only that, but psychologically, I think you would feel better as well, because people can become literally trapped under their hat, where they're so afraid to take out their hat they can't even go outside without wearing a hat because they're afraid of rejection. They have much fear in them, and I know this as one who has been dealing with hair loss. So, now some people wear like straw hats, like Amish people, and straw hats are actually much better than wearing a hat like this, simply because straw hats have little holes in them which allow the hair to breathe. But even still, if you're wearing hats for prolonged periods of time, I don't believe that it's very good for the hair. I was reading too, like in the baseball, Major League Baseball, many of the players actually are bald or have lost hair, and they wear hats. So I think the best way, to encourage hair regrowth, or to at least slow down male pattern baldness, if you have the genetics for that, would simply be to, for one, go vegan or go raw vegan. Get a lot of nutrients in you, so eat a lot of whole foods, okay? And also, stop wearing all these caps and hats and, things on a regular, continual basis, because, I really do believe that it will help to speed up your thinning process. And, it's just not cool, It's not cool, and, you should be you. You really should just learn to accept yourself for who you are, and keep your hair short. If the thinning process has got severe, or it's bad, because there's many positive benefits of keeping your hair short, while you're dealing with this, because you can use hair oil is a lot much easier, you know, because obviously your hair's short, so it doesn't take as much external application to massage into the hair roots and to nurse your hair that way. That would help a lot in as far as helping to regrow and arrest balding. I really am of the mindset that this thing can be conquered. But again, we have to take these steps necessary in order to help that process. So, you know, that means not covering up the head all the time. Because I've noticed that even people that don't have the genetics or the receding hairline or whatever to go bald, but that wear hats on a continual basis, do seem to have thinner hair than usual. It's not conducive to good hair growth whatsoever. You'll always find that people that don't wear hats tend to have healthier hair. And I'm talking about specifically the ones that don't have the genes to go bald. I'm saying that the ones that don't have the genes to go bald, that don't wear hats, tend to have much more luxurious, thicker, more beautiful hair. And I believe that's just as a result of not wearing hats all the time. Also, wearing a hat can mat down the hair, so your hair actually will look thinner. After you take the hat off, your hair will look thinner than what it really is, because it's patting it down, the hair, which isn't cool either. So if you want your hair to visibly appear thicker all the time, then don't be putting something down, squishing the hair, you know, because then your hair will visibly look thinner to people. Whereas if you didn't wear the hat, it would visibly look thicker, see? So there's a lot of positive benefits, in my opinion, of not wearing a hat. It doesn't mean that you can never wear a hat, but if you do, you know, it should be like maybe a brief 20 minutes, and not every day. It's easy to get into a habit of wearing a hat. I'll put it that way. It really is. You know, I started wearing hats a long time ago, and it's easy to become addicted to them because, you know, you think you can just conceal what's going on up here, and that's not the way to approach this, because, you know, I'll just say this, people will be more shocked if eventually you're bald, but you were hiding it behind a hat, and then once someday you take your hat off, they'll be in shock because they have never seen you, okay, with a bald head. But if you don't wear a hat and your hat naturally thins over time to the point where you're completely bald, it's not going to be a shock to people because that's how they've seen you basically evolve. So it'll be a much easier process if you are fearful of what people might think of you. But if you're always wearing a hat, you're kind of setting yourself up for a trap someday. So, better to accept yourself and what's happening to you now than down the road and being more fearful of wondering what people will think if you ever did decide to take off your hat, you know, because then it would be more of a shock to people if that's what you're concerned about. So, you know, I think the best thing here, again, and it is really common sense advice, is that, you know, wearing a hat all the time is not, in my opinion, good for hair growth. You want to let your hair and follicles breathe. You want to give them sunlight. So, you know, in the spring, summertime, go outside, you know, give the hair some sunlight for once, you know, and keep your hair short until, you know, you get to the density or thickness that you want, and then kind of grow it out a little bit more as you want. But, you know, the main thing is stop wearing the hat, and you'll feel better about yourself, you'll look better, and you won't have to worry about, you know, living your life under a hat anymore. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, you know, I'm not saying that hats cause baldness, of course, but I don't think that they're good for your hair either. And I think it's pretty evident, and we can observe that. And you know, I just think that by living your life under a hat and never giving your hair oxygen or sunlight, it's just simply not good. And of course, you had the analogy that I gave with the grass. And you know, one other thing to think about is animals out in nature. You know, they have fur coats. They don't wear hats. That'd be kind of funny to see an animal wearing a hat. And when we're born, we don't wear hats. Okay, our head is exposed. Maybe it's exposed for a reason. You know, of course, there's probably many scientific reasons that I'm not fully aware of at this present time. But you know, we came into the world without wearing a hat. So, I know, you can take it as you want, but again, you know, I just think that continually wearing them 24/7, I mean, some people even sleep with their hat on, not good, not cool, so, you know, take the hat off, get a nice short haircut, put on some good olive oil, coconut oil, bring garage oil, Eclipta Garage, you know, jojoba oil, coconut oil, massage that in there, leave that overnight, expose your head and hair to air, to sunlight, drink a lot of water, eat whole foods, fruits and vegetables, and I think that's the best way to overcome your hair loss problem, to arrest balding, to maybe reverse it, and to keep your hair its very rich color. Of course, you have faux tea and all of the special hair herbs like nettle and horsetail. So, with all of that being said, if you liked the video, please like, favorite, and subscribe.